Scene Daddy Interviews.
Welcome everyone to Scene Daddy Interviews. My name is Ian, and this is very cool. Right now on Skype, we've got Telle of The Word Alive. Telle, man, how you doing today?
I am doing fantastic. Running around before I hit the studio to work on some new music. So just getting ready to go from my house after this.
Oh, okay. All right. Now, I was actually going to save this for a little bit later, but let's jump right into it. So what part of the studio are you doing right now? Are you in the writing process? Are you actually laying down tracks? What are you guys up to?
We're very much in the writing process. With this next album, we just wanted to spend as much time as possible before going into the studio, kind of laying things down. Like we started writing late last year, probably.
Okay.
Just because we wanted kind of a head start and we wanted to be able to sit on tracks for a while this time. And, just with our touring schedule, we took 5 months off, which is the longest break The Word Alive has ever had.
Right.
And so we just wanted to make the most of that break, basically. And we took some time off, and then it was just kind of like, if anybody has ideas and things, just let's start writing and see what we come up with. I mean, we've always been a band that I wouldn't say we write 100% year round, but we always have stuff in the works, the whole time we're even thinking about writing music or a next album. So like sometimes an idea, and sometimes it won't, be a song. It'll just be something that sparks an idea in the studio that we actually do then go on to make into a song. So it's like everyone just has ideas and progressions, and sometimes it's just a sound that we really like. We're like, all right, we need to find a way to utilize that. So we're kind of in that process where we have several ideas and we're just mapping those out and then writing some new ones as we go.
Okay. All right. So you yourself, what is your process like? Do you actually write lyrics the whole time with whatever you're doing? Are you constantly writing lyrics, or do you wait for, some music or some idea to hit you first?
I always am writing lyrics because now over the last couple albums, I've taken on a little bit more of the songwriting role as well. So like I'm just trying to become a better songwriter overall, that from melodies to lyrics to guitars, bass, whatever it is.
Sure.
So I'm writing pretty much year round these days. I'm also like working on my first solo project thing. So like for me, it's just kind of like exercising those muscles, so to speak, whereas like not everything I write is going to be for The Word Alive or make sense for The Word Alive, but sometimes some things that I go in it, with the intent to write for something else, it does end up making sense for The Word Alive, or the guys are stoked on it and they're like, hey, we should use this for this. And I'm like, all right, well, I just like to write, but more times than not, I'd say 75% of the lyrics that end up making the record are lyrics that were written after I heard the music.
Okay.
And that's just kind of how it ends up working out, because when I hear a song, it makes me feel something, and I try to cater to that emotion. The same way I feel like a fan, would listen to a song, and however the music makes you feel, I kind of want to try to connect that feeling. And obviously not everyone's going to feel the same thing when they hear a song, but
sure.
For me, I feel like if I'm like, this song sounds sad, or the song sounds angry, or this song sounds like hopeful or longing, or whatever it makes me feel, I try to really cater the lyrics around that.
Okay. All right. I know obviously you said sometimes the band gets to look at what you've done. They're like, wow, this would really work for us. Is there anything you specifically earmarked for yourself, though, working on this solo album?
Yeah. There was one song that I have that Tony was like, this could be great for the Word Alive, and I was like, I think while I can understand that and appreciate that, there are a couple things where it's just like this is so much me that
Ah,
I want it to be something different. Now, since I do write a lot, there's some things that I'm way more attached to than others.
sure.
And but so there's been like one thing in particular I wrote recently that I was like, this can't change. Like
Ah,
it means a lot to me being what it is,
right.
and I don't want to take away from that. But usually my mindset is I'm free game with anything. Like
Okay.
all I want is just the songs I write to come out the best way possible and to be heard. That's obviously the goal is I want to share the music. So
Exactly.
um, that's kind of where it's been.
Wow. That's a very interesting process for sure. I mean, with Violent Noise being so personal to you, it's interesting to hear that there are even, something more personal or something more that's, directly you that you want to kind of hold on to.
Yeah, yeah. It's just doing the Word Alive for over 10 years
Yeah.
now. There's an aspect of things that I've had to hold back or not didn't really make sense for us sonically or even lyrically. So, some of my solo stuff, it's straight to the point,
Hmm.
I guess, in a way where some of it is, about, relationship things, which for the most part I've tried to keep out of the Word Alive.
Right. Right.
I don't, I think more times than not, it comes off as cliche when you try to kind of do these heartbroken songs and kind
Yeah.
of more of the scene world.
Sure.
So I really try to like stick to more of just like other things that have happened in my life that I do think are impactful and people, can get something out of. But for the most part, I've kind of kept that to myself.
Okay.
So obviously now with, my solo project, it makes a little bit more sense, and I feel like that's the place for it.
Ah, okay. Yeah, that totally makes sense. So now, when you're talking about your solo material, obviously you don't have to give a lot away here because you're working on it. You probably want to surprise some people, but is it going to be more along the lines of like a Danny Warsnop, a Landon Turs, a Telle and Pearson? Is it something there, or is this just a completely new thing for you?
It's a completely new thing.
Okay.
I would say out of all of those, Landon probably has a couple things that would make more sense with like what I'm doing than the others.
Okay.
But it's still something completely different from what any of them are doing,
Hmm.
and definitely completely different from what any Word Alive fan will probably expect. But I mean,
Okay.
I like that personally, and since it is so different from the Word Alive, like that's kind of like my point.
Right.
Like I,
Right.
I, if it was too close to the Word Alive, it may as well have just been the Word Alive.
Sure.
But I wanted to do something that was a completely different outlet for me. So yeah, I won't give away too much, as you
Sure.
said, but I'm very excited about it, and the people who have heard it are equal mix of like shocked, but also like this is really good.
Ah, okay.
So far so good.
No, that's awesome to hear. So, well, I guess the question is, are you almost completely done with that? So right now, are you balancing between the two while you're in the studio?
Yeah, I'm balancing between the two as of now. I would say I am. I'm probably about 70% of the way done with my solo stuff.
Okay.
I have a few songs that are like pretty deep into mixes that I could get them mastered and they'd be fine.
Okay.
And then I have about probably like 10 songs that are like not finished. And I don't know exactly which ones I'm going to be releasing first.
Hmm.
So I'm just trying to kind of get them all done and then
Sure.
bring in some trusted people and my manager and a couple of friends to kind of help me pick like the best ones, because obviously, like for me, like I love them all for different
Right.
reasons,
Right.
but I do want to make sure that it's cohesive. I do want to make sure that it's they really represent the product that I'll be able to like build off of in the future without taking too many like left turns for people who like it from day one. I
Right.
think that's one of the biggest things that I can take away from being in a band for so long is there are songs that don't really make sense for us to be playing in 2019 versus 2009 or 10 or whatever. And I kind of want to make sure that this project is a representation of like everything that I have loved and do love currently that I feel like is more true to like what I love, knowing that that won't really change at this point in my life.
Right. Right. Okay. We'll shift back a little bit to the Word Alive then. Now that you're in the studio working on that as well, are you also working with Matt Good on this album as well?
We haven't done anything with Matt yet. It's funny because I was literally just texting him
Ah.
right before this, talking about Trapped, because there have been I won't name them, but there are a few bands in our scene that I guess the easiest way to put it out there is it feels like they listen to Trapped and they're like, all right, let's do that. So, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
So sometimes that's subconscious, sometimes it's not. But hopefully, people love our version of our own song, and listen to it more.
Right.
And it's kind of a nod to us at the same time, like the friends in the industry who I know for sure have heard it
Right.
many times, and I'm just like, yeah, we take it as an ode to the song itself. I think it's a great song.
Yeah.
We hopefully we'll be playing that one for years to come, but it's like we want to top it, and we'd love to work with Matt Good more. He's been a big part of the last two records.
Yeah.
His schedule has been really crazy with our writing schedule, but since we're taking our time, like we're gonna at the bare minimum do some writing with him.
Okay.
And if we haven't chosen who we're gonna do the record with yet, but it still could be him. But
Okay.
I would guess that we're going to be doing the record in LA this time, not Arizona. But he splits time in Phoenix and LA recording, so
Very true. Yeah,
it could still very much work out.
Yeah. No, I always thought that was very interesting. I mean, when you look through your discography, Matt Good was really the only producer that you went back to, for Dark Matter and Violet Noise. I saw recently, what are your top 5 albums? And I saw that you have Heroin in your top albums. And I thought that was really cool because I don't ever see anyone talk about that album. And that's one of my favorites as well. Was that one of the reasons why you wanted to work with Matt Good?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, we've always been friends. We first toured with From First to Last back in 2009.
Right.
And then again in 2010 or 11, I can't even remember. But and we became friends, especially Matt and I. And we just kept in touch. And he was really good friends with a buddy of mine that started an electronic project with him years ago. That I was just like, man, his production is like insane now. And I felt like he was really ahead of the curve with a lot of stuff. So we started talking about it, and Zach had actually started like doing some songs with him in Phoenix and was like, Matt actually records now. And I was like, oh, well, obviously I was very interested, and he really wanted to do the record, which ended up being Dark Matter.
Yeah.
And I was like, all right, well, let's do it. And then we had such a great experience with him, and he was, he definitely added something to our sound that, we had been kind of looking for. And so it just made perfect sense. But yeah, Heroin is, like I said, I mean, it's one of my top 5 most inspirational, like most listened to albums, especially when I was younger. But I mean, I still listen to those songs, and I'm just like, damn, these songs are still really good today. And I just, one of the biggest things that I told Matt when we first started working together, I was like, no one sounded like that before or
Right.
after.
Exactly.
Like,
Yep.
and that's one of the hardest things I think to accomplish. Like, obviously, like I feel like Under Oath has done that, and there have been a few bands in our scene that have kind of cornered their own, niche in
Sure.
the world. But I really feel like that it is, like you said, an underrated, underappreciated record that, if a lot of bands were honest, I think there was a lot of inspiration, taken from them. And I really think they really helped the hard rock, like, meets electronic, like, dark elemented music.
Yeah.
And I think they had a bigger role than a lot of people know.
No, for sure. No, it's one of those things where you kind of wish fans of this scene of music would go back, because I remember when that first came out, people were very, like, it was a very divisive album.
Yeah.
People just, they completely wrote off from first to last after hearing it.
Yeah.
And I wish people would go back and listen to it again. That's why I was very happy to see it on your list, because like I said, you don't really see that often. So that's awesome. I'm going to move on a little bit to the tour you were recently on. You were recently in Europe, so now you're back from that finally. I know you did a bunch of dates over there. I've lived overseas before. I've been to shows before.
Cool.
Yeah, it's a very different experience. And I just kind of wanted to know, from your point of view, from your perspective, what are the shows like there compared to here, in the States? And is there any big difference between the crowds in each?
It really depends market to market. The larger, broader answer is yes, they definitely are different.
Sure.
But sometimes they're not. There are a few pockets that are just, they're kind of whatever shows, and some of it's because they don't get a lot of shows and they don't know.
Right.
Some of it's the polar opposite. They don't get a lot of shows, so they just lose their minds, like they've never experienced anything before.
Right.
So it really does depend. But for us, like, we're arguably bigger, or at least more appreciated, in Europe for sure.
Okay.
And especially when it comes to terms of the diversity of our music, and when you go through our entire discography.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So, like, they're very much so, like, say, for instance, this set that we just played, the 10-year set, we kind of started with, like, Deceiver and Empire, and we went through, like, almost in order of our records.
Okay.
Pulling out songs. So it was like old to new.
Yeah.
Well, we transitioned at one point from, I think it was 2012 to, well, we did play The Victim in between, but then we played Lighthouse.
Oh, okay.
And the same people who are, like, moshing the most for, like, 2012 were also the same people singing the loudest to Lighthouse. Whereas I think there's kind of a stigma about that song, at least online.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm like, when I look out in the crowd, I'm like, the same people who are moshing are the same, like, sometimes it's big dudes that are just singing their hearts out to that song. And so, I think people just don't care as much about what other people think. And they're going to shows because they truly love the music, not to just, like, be seen out or to be able to post something online saying, oh, I was there, I did this. Like, It's like they're truly just going because they love the music and they want to sing, they want to enjoy themselves with their friends. Mm-hmm. So I think there's just a different level of appreciation that you can find it in the States. It's just fewer and far between. Like, you're going to have, like, Chicago is, like, really great, and they don't give a shit about what anyone thinks. And there are cities like that, especially for us, that are just, we know are going to be really good shows. Okay. And there's just more of that. Mm-hmm. Internationally for us.
Interesting. Okay. Is there a difference between who, holds open their phone for the entire show compared, like, is it different in Europe compared to here?
That is kind of similar.
Okay.
I'd say in the States, there's probably a little bit more of that. Mm-hmm. The difference is the people who are doing it internationally, I think, for two reasons. One, they don't know when they're ever going to see you again.
Right.
Whereas I think the feeling in the States is like, if I miss them, I'm just going to catch them the next time they're back in town.
I see.
So I think there's a little more, like, meaning behind the filming,
Hmm.
not so much that they're not appreciating the moment, because I would say a lot of those fans too, like they're still singing super loud, they're still participating, they
Right,
just
right.
happen to have a phone in their hand.
Sure.
Whereas in the States though, I think I see people like literally watching the show through their phone.
Yeah, yeah,
And so, which is very confusing to me. Like, I
I'm with you.
just, I don't understand,
Right. No.
to be honest. But I'm also getting older, and every once in a while, I'll sense some of that, like, oh, I'm getting old mentality. I'm just like, live in the moment,
Right,
enjoy it,
right.
like, go play outside, like, like that kind of thing. But that's just my generation is very much like, you're here, like, let's have fun with it.
Right.
And it doesn't mean you can't document anything. I think everyone does that,
Oh,
but
for sure.
there's just a difference between living through your phone and using your phone as a tool to relive what you did experience.
Exactly. Yep, I totally agree with that. So, talking about tours and what you've got coming up, you also have the huge tour coming up. I believe it's in July. So you've got about a
Yep,
month or
July,
so.
August, yeah.
Yeah. So you've got that huge, it's a co-headlining tour with Miss May
Mhm.
I. Not only are you guys playing Deceiver and a bunch of other tracks, but also they're playing Monument as well. So I know you've
Yeah.
toured with them in the past, but what brought this all together? Because this is a pretty phenomenal tour.
Well, we were basically going to do this tour ourselves, and they were interested in doing a tour for Monument. But what we were going to do is we were going to do the B Market 10-year tour, and then we were going to do like the A Market 10-year tour.
Ah,
So
okay.
basically, all we were going to do is we were going to do the set that we just played,
Hmm.
swap out a few songs with a few others, just to give it a good mix,
Sure.
and then we were going to do the same thing though, where like certain songs we're putting them into what we're calling just like the TWA vault. Like,
Right.
it doesn't mean we're never going to play them again, but it means maybe we're never going to play them again.
Okay. All right.
And it's just like, if it made sense, like say a 15-year tour or a
Hmm.
20-year tour or something like that, like thinking like way down the line, like
Sure.
we're not saying that we're never going to play these songs again, but for the foreseeable future, like, unless it's a 10-year tour, 15, 20 years, whatever, like the bigger milestone things, like we're just not going to play the songs
Hmm.
that don't represent like where we are right now.
Right.
Because I think like too many bands get caught up in what they used to do, and they're not having fun, and then the fans aren't really, it loses its appeal, and then before you know it, you're just trying to chase what you think the fans want. And we'd rather be a band that do what we love and what we want to do,
Sure.
and if that means that we grow from that, amazing. If that means that we don't, then we can walk away and be totally fine with that. But for us, it just doesn't make sense to try to recreate something we did 10 years ago
Sure.
that doesn't really represent who we are today.
Right.
So we just want to be open about that and honest, and let fans know, like, this is the last time you're going to hear pretty much any song from Deceiver,
Right.
unless we make it to like 15 or 20 years. So we're just trying to be open about it. And when Miss May I heard that we were doing that, we were under the same agency. We have different agents, but they kind of like brought it up, like, hey, we're doing a similar thing. We love you guys. We love them.
Hmm.
We're just like, strength in numbers. Let's
Yeah.
just, our fans would be stoked. We're both gonna have to play less songs to make it happen, but we'd rather have just a big stacked show that's really memorable for fans. So
Right.
that's just kind of how it came together, and it made a lot of sense. We hadn't toured together since 2013,
Right. Yeah.
on the Killswitch Engage tour. So it had been long enough. We felt like it was over 5 years. We're like, it's not going to feel like you've just seen this
Right.
tour. So we were excited to do it.
Yeah. When you speak about Deceiver and you talk about not being in the same place now that you were then, do you mean more, it might be a combination too, but do you mean more the lyrics or the style of music?
I think just really everything.
Okay.
That song was kind of like, I would say, almost juvenile in a way. Like,
Okay.
I don't feel that way. I'm not, angry or, I'm not like a jaded, bitter person. And I feel like that record kind of came off that way.
Ah,
But it
okay.
was just like the intention of it was you're just young, you're hungry, some bad shit's happened to you, and you want to like prove people wrong.
Right.
Um, but like looking back, it's like I don't feel the need to prove anything to anybody
Hmm.
in that regard. And the things that have happened in my life that aren't good, I'd rather write about them in a different way that I think can hopefully like help people. Not that that record didn't, it definitely did,
Oh, for sure.
but just helping them in the way where I would now.
Okay.
And so it's like I wouldn't be like, you get what you deserve for fucking with me.
Right.
Like
Right.
that's not my mindset now. I'm more like, I guess, a thoughtful, like understanding person
Hmm.
now, and I just see that some of the worst things you go through are an opportunity for you to learn and grow, and it's not necessarily something that you're even going to have these regrets when you're older. Like I appreciate a lot of the things that have happened to me because it helped me become who I am today. So
Right.
it's just I have a completely different perspective on life from what I did back then, and then musically speaking, we proved like in the same mindset, like we proved that we can play anything, like we
Yes,
can
for sure.
shred, we can have solos, we can play as fast or whatever technical as possible. But we also at the same time, like the music we all grew up on like wasn't that, and it's like that was a product of the environment we were in as we were coming up,
Hmm.
and we like those songs. I mean, like I like Deceiver still.
Yeah.
I think the
Yeah,
songs are sick. I think that a lot of them were ahead of their time,
for
and
sure.
it's easy for me to say like we could have been a big band, but the case at the same time is like it wasn't like we were selling like hundreds of thousands of records, and even when it comes to like some of our counterparts, like say like asking Alexandria,
Yeah.
who were substantially bigger than we were, even then our music was much more technical than theirs.
Sure. Sure.
And I think we kind of fell into this weird place where we were not heavy and technical enough for the heavy technical fans,
Ah.
and too heavy for the lighter fans.
Right.
So like
Right.
we were in this weird mix. Whereas like a band like theirs was, they never played anything that complicated. So it like really set it up to where if you like them, I'm sure there's a lot of fans out there of asking that their first guitar was an asking song.
Sure. Yeah.
Well, the word alive wasn't going to be that because you would have to be really good to play most of the songs.
Right.
And so like we didn't have certain elements that I think make it easy for you to like really fall in love with a band on a deeper level, because we were just in this weird no man's land.
Right. Right.
And then and then we just were like, well, we've done this. How many times can we just try to like make the craziest breakdown
Yeah.
and then have people only appreciate the breakdown in a song? And we're like, well, what about the rest of this that like means a lot to us?
Yeah.
And it was just like people were just appreciating like the double kick, the breakdowns, or guitar, or like how much screaming there was.
Sure.
And we're like, that's not what makes a great song to us.
Right.
And even though we had all those things, that wasn't what made the song for us. So I think we just got like over like trying to basically compete with this fickle minded mentality of a song wasn't good unless it had this, or this.
Hmm. Hmm.
And that's just not how we felt about music, our own or otherwise. So
Right.
we just started branching away from that, and we wanted to write more, I guess, in-depth songs and try to like think about things in a more dynamic way, just like for us. So that's what we've been trying to do the last couple of records in particular. And that's definitely the direction we're going with our newer music. Is it's not that there's never going to be a quote unquote breakdown, or I'm going to stop screaming, or that I don't like screaming. It has nothing to do with that.
Right.
It's just we feel we can be more than that, and we feel like we can write great songs, and we want to just really push ourselves in that regard. And I think the fans that are coming out to our shows now and listening to our music now, it's like our newer songs are just way bigger.
Mhm.
than anything we've done in the past.
Right.
And it's hard to like shake that, online perception. But when you come out to the show, like the 10-year shows, it was so obvious. It was like there were people who barely sang the Deceiver songs.
Sure.
And then it's like, and then Lighthouse On comes on and everyone's singing every word. So it's like, we, it shows us that we've gone in a direction that is like really meaningful and impactful to people.
Right.
And it also shows that the people who are like claiming that that's their favorite record and why don't you guys do this? It's like, well, no one is even coming out to the shows that loves those songs. So
Interesting.
it just doesn't really make sense for us. So that's why we're doing one big send off. If you
Right.
do really care that much, and the shows will be good and it'll be fun, but it's also you're hearing them for the last time. And I think that's a big part of, why it's going to be successful.
Yeah. No, it's a very good way to market as well. To be like, hey, this is your last time to hear these tracks, so
Hmm.
make sure you actually come out and enjoy a show for sure. So
Hmm.
let's talk a little bit about what you mentioned about, getting kind of away from, the way the Word Alive was being, kind of in that no man's land with, the technicality of the music, but then the lyrics and going back and forth between melodic and screaming. Do you ever worry, because you see this online sometimes, do you ever worry that people are saying, or you don't strike me as someone who really cares a lot about what other people say, but when there are a bunch of people that are talking about your new music compared to your older music, and it's similar to
Hmm.
what you just said, are you worried that the technicality isn't there anymore, that now it's more anthemic, now it's more melodic, and it's more appealing to the masses? Do you think that there is something to the dumbing down of that? You know what I mean? That's not necessarily the correct
Yeah.
word, but that's the kind of thing that gets thrown around, especially online.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's a science behind a lot of the reason that people like the music they like.
Hmm.
Whether it comes to tempos, to the key, to how fast a song hits a chorus,
Right.
to how often they hear that chorus, what happens between, is it elevating in the verses, is it getting dynamically more like relaxed so that the chorus feels bigger. I mean, there's
Sure.
so many things of the science behind what makes people like music,
Yeah, it's awesome.
but it's like I wouldn't refer to it. I mean, it is dumbing down if you want to put it that way, but at the same time, for me, what it is, it's opening up the song so that you can hear everything that's going on,
Ah,
and every part can be impactful. So, like
right.
for instance, you go and see a super technical band live, you can't focus on, you don't know everything that's even going on,
Sure.
because you can't physically audibly take in everything, visually perceive everything that's happening. You can only do so much at the same time.
Right.
And but then also it works that way for literally live sound. Like you can't physically, there's not enough hands to be mixing all these crazy things happening at the same time.
Right.
But when you have less, it becomes easier for your engineer to make every part feel how it needs to feel, to sound how it needs to sound,
Right.
to be impactful, to cut through the mix, so you're not missing things.
Mhm.
Which to me, like really adds to a band sounding huge live.
Right. Right.
So like we just understand that just you don't have to be doing a lot to get a lot from something. And so like the less is more approach is just an approach we've taken. That doesn't mean that we're never technical. It's just we're trying to be technical in a different way,
Sure.
and we're trying to find what that is. There's still snippets of parts here and there where it's like the average person could never play them,
Oh yeah.
whether
Yeah.
it's drums or guitar or bass or otherwise. But it doesn't need to be like that all the time. And I do think with our newer material that we've been writing, there's definitely some really really cool instrumentation happening, and especially a lot of the guitar work is, I would say, to a guitar player more interesting.
Ah.
But we've learned how to balance like what's best for the song, but also like maintaining like it's not just like power chords
Right.
and stuff. It's like we don't want to be that either.
Mhm.
um we want that when that happens, it to feel like it needs to be that, and it needs to just be this big driving thing.
Right.
But yeah, we're definitely like not dumbing things down just to try to be more marketable.
Right.
I'd say it's like we are playing the way we're playing because sonically we just feel like it sounds better.
Mm-hmm.
And that when you do go to a 10, so to speak, with the technicality, like it pops,
Yeah.
and you
Right.
see it. And and it's just like when you're doing it all the time, I think it just kind of loses that like punch.
Sure. Wow. I really enjoyed that explanation because I think that's what people need to hear sometimes. They need to understand some of the, even the, quote unquote dumbing down, the ability to make everything shine. I
Yeah.
really liked when you said the opening up of the actual track itself. So you're not tight with everything where you're not allowing people to see or hear what you're doing. So I very much like that. Thank you very much. So
Yeah.
let me move on from the actual music itself to your vocals. You're one of the, I'm going to give you a lot of compliments here. You're one of the best scene vocalists out there, and probably even spans outside of the scene because that's probably too limiting for you. So I just wanted to
Well,
ask.
thank you.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So with the new material that you're working on, is there anything you're going to be really wanting to showcase vocally that's different, that really punches everything up?
I will say some of the songs that we are working on, and again, I don't know what all ones will make the record or not, so
For
I can
sure.
only speak to what there is
Mhm.
now.
Yeah.
Definitely, like I've learned a lot and I have a lot more control. And I think some people thought that because I didn't sing high like all the time, that I like can't, or I was losing my voice, or if I didn't
Ah,
scream as much, it was because I was losing my voice or something, which is ridiculous. Like
right.
my voice is probably stronger than it's ever been.
Great.
And but it's like it's funny to me people's perception of all of that and how it works.
Right.
But I know there are people who have lost their voice or things, but I take very good care of mine.
Oh, good.
So that's not really ever been an issue for me. So there are things on this record that I've never done.
Okay.
And there are places that I've pushed my voice to that I've never done, or somewhat I've never been able to, or I hadn't really learned well enough how to harness certain things.
Yeah.
I'll say that there are some of the most difficult vocal takes that I've ever done that
Wow.
are on in some of these writing sessions. But above that, I think I've just really found my voice a lot more so, like with the last couple records, and
Sure.
I've just been really able to, you know, build off of that. Whereas in the past, it was just like I didn't even know how to scream when I joined the Word Alive. So like
Right.
screaming took a forefront priority for me, like trying to get it to the level where my singing voice was.
Mm-hmm.
Well, but what happened was in my screaming, it became like kind of what people talked about the most. And it kind of almost got lost in the shuffle. The fact that
Ah.
like I consider myself a singer
Right.
first.
Right.
And I felt like I had learned everything I really wanted to or needed to with screaming. And so I just didn't feel challenged in that way anymore.
Ah. Okay.
So it's not that I don't like screaming. I love screaming. And I think it's one of the coolest things that like you can just not know how to do it. And then, years later, it's just like a everyday normal thing for me. So I love it. I appreciate the ability to do it.
Mm-hmm.
But I just wanted to get back to like pushing my singing voice as the priority.
Right.
And so over the last like year or so, like pretty much like around Violent Noise coming out and then beyond with, the live shows, I've been really trying to like learn more things about my voice. And we have one song that will for sure make the record at this point, that like when we sent some demos to Fearless, our label,
Yeah.
and just some like select people, the response was just that this is the best that my voice has ever sounded.
Wow.
And I think it's just like you know I'm a grown ass man now, and it's like I just understand my voice. I understand what I can and can't do,
Yeah.
and I really push the boundaries of my voice, not necessarily in this like a note way, but in a way that accents the emotionality of a song. And I think like I've been able to dive deeper into what the songs are about. And then as I'm singing these songs, then it's like, not that it's more believable, because I've always sang, from the heart, and I've always tried to sing in a way that lets people know, like, hey, like I mean what I'm singing right now.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like I've just been able to tap into it on another level from where I was in the past. And so like I'm really looking forward to expressing myself more and on records, so that I think people will really get a better understanding of like what the song is, what it means to me, how it makes me feel. And then, I just feel like I'm doing a better job at understanding what the song needs to go to that next level, vocally, and where I'm trying to be a lot more calculated about when I'm singing, what notes I'm hitting and why I'm hitting them, for how long, like whether something's legato or staccato, or more aggressive, or it's I'm trying to like make it sound softer. Like I'm just thinking about everything a lot more and spending more time on writing the vocals, whereas in the past it's just been like we're in the studio and then it's like, all right, vocals, and I get just like a little bit of time on it. So now it's just been, I have more time, I can really dive deeper, I can express myself more fully and just be like, no, like this isn't good enough yet, like I want it to be like this, and until it's there, then no.
Okay.
Whereas in the past I would maybe do something I didn't necessarily like or wasn't sold on it, and if like the producer was like, no, just trust me, this sounds great, let's move on, like we would.
Sure.
And so now I'm just like, no.
Yeah, right.
we are not. And because this is my band and
Yep.
these are my words, and I have to sing this every day, from this point on, and I want it to be perfect. And so, but we don't work with producers who don't get that now.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
I'm stoked.
Right. Yeah, that's a great thought process to have, and then also very exciting for everyone that's a fan to be able to, pick out those parts that you're talking about when the new music comes out. So that's awesome. So another thing I wanted to make a note of, I think a point of contention right now in the scene, the debate between screamers and unclean vocals. And I think I've asked people on the show before. I just recently had Andy from Macari and Wander on, and we had a little discussion about this. I think I know where your opinion lies on this, but do you mind letting the audience know how you feel about this?
Definitely you scream or you sing.
Yep.
The whole unclean, clean vocalist thing, like everyone's a vocalist.
Sure.
One.
Right.
So that's just like, that's like saying music. I don't know. It's like as broad of a range of things as possible. Like you're not a vocalist unless you're a vocalist. And if you do anything that revolves around creating sound from your voice that is used in music, you're a vocalist.
Sure.
That doesn't mean you're good, but you are.
Tell me about
it.
Yeah.
And so then when it comes like clean, no, it's singing. You're singing.
Okay.
That's what it's been for thousands of years. It's what it's going to be thousands of years from now. Singing is singing. Screaming is screaming. Now, I do think that there's instances where someone is scream singing,
Sure,
which is an easier way of just saying like pitch screaming.
Yeah.
Some people just don't know what that means. So I get it, like when you use it in terms like that. But when people are saying unclean, I don't even know where that came from or why. It's just like when someone comes up with a nickname for something, usually it's because it makes it better, or it wasn't like understood what it was before.
Right. Yeah.
Everyone knew what screaming was. There was no need for a new nickname or a new term for it. Like there's different types of screaming.
Yes, for sure.
There's guttural, there's fry, there's whatever.
Yeah, you mentioned pitch. Yeah, for sure.
But it's all screaming. Right. And this whole unclean, it's ridiculous. I think my buddy Eric from I Prevail said it great the other day. He was like, I'm sick and tired of people calling me an unclean vocalist. He's like, I take a shower every day.
Right.
And it's just like, that's what it sounds like. It sounds like they're dirty,
Well, right.
like as a human being. And I'm like, this doesn't make any sense, because you can sing with a lot of grit, and it
Right.
doesn't mean you're a clean singer. Like
Interesting.
it's like, no, you're just singing, and you're singing with more grit, on your voice, or rasp.
Right.
Like
Rasp. Yeah.
the whole clean, unclean thing doesn't even really make sense to me. And I have no idea why someone thought that it was necessary.
Well, sorry. I go back and forth. I say screaming. I say unclean sometimes. I do regular singing and then clean vocals. I go back and forth. But that's why I like talking to vocalists about it, because I think it's really interesting where people side on this. Now, I will say, the one thing I thought was very interesting when I looked this up, it does seem like it came from where you say clean guitar and you have like a distorted, unclean guitar. And people kind of put that terminology to vocals.
Okay.
And that's I think that's partially where it came from. And then you know how it goes. Everyone just blows everything up, and then it continues on with whatever other word people want to make up for it. So I think it's just very interesting, that there are sides. Like, you can actually choose a side, and there are people like unclean vocals and people like, no, it's screaming. So it's just very interesting.
Yeah.
Sorry. So,
well, no, I didn't know that. I mean, I guess in a weird way, it makes sense that someone could make that association.
Right.
But it's like I said, at the same time, like, no one needed that in that term. Like, I guess with, when you say like clean guitar, usually that's like in a studio, and it just means, you want it dry.
Right.
Like, you just want a dry signal so that you can go back in and you can do anything.
Right.
But if you record with distortion or effects or whatever it is, like, you can't take that off of it.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like, when you record dry or clean, then you have so much more ability to change the sound after you record. Whereas you lose that ability. So like, that isn't even necessarily meant to be the sound of the guitar.
Right.
It's just, it's more just like, we need a clean signal from your guitar so that we can do more with it. So it's like, when it comes to singing, though, that doesn't apply necessarily in the same way. I guess it can, if you're talking about like singing and you want to do some cool shit with it, and like, post effects stuff. But you would be like, I need you to sing this as clean as possible. Like, I guess that makes sense, but to me, that doesn't translate to defining what someone does in the same way. I think they're like two different things. So one is like meant for a studio thing, and then I can see how it did grow into something else, but that just shows that the world sucks and the internet sucks.
You are absolutely right about the internet and most of the world too. So I'm with you there.
We're just trying to live.
Very true.
That's it.
All right, Telle, man. I don't know a better place to end than right there. So we obviously talked about a lot. I hope that you'll be able to come back in the future, because I know we'll have way more to talk about as well. But until then, you've got the Deceiver tour coming out very soon. You're going to be going out in July. That's with Miss May I doing Monument as well. It's going to be an awesome tour. It has 1,000 Below and then also Afterlife in it too. And those are two other great bands. You're in the studio as well. Is there anything else that you wanted to plug, that you wanted to let everyone know about before we end tonight?
Just keep your eyes out for more stuff coming from the Word Alive this year. We're going to be announcing another tour not too long from now. Awesome. And we just finished 10 years. We're looking forward to 10 more.
Yeah, man. First off, and I should have probably started this by saying congrats on 10 years. That's really awesome. And then,
thank you, man.
Like I mentioned before, you'll definitely have to come back, because you've actually been in 3 bands that I love. You were in Fear and Faith, you were in Greeley Estates, and then now in The Word Alive. So at some point, we'll have to go back and talk about all of that. But I know you're very busy.
Let's do it.
Yeah, we got to get you to other stuff. But until then, man, thank you so much. Like I said, you're one of the best vocalists out there, and I always enjoy what you do. So thank you very much for coming on the show.
Thank you so much, man.
You've been listening to Scene Daddy Interviews.
Thank you all for listening to Scene Daddy Interviews. Make sure you support the artists we featured by checking out the summary of the episode. Also, for all your scene news, reviews, and memes, make sure to follow Scene Daddy and Ian Hates on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and don't forget to subscribe and rate Scene Daddy Interviews on your favorite podcast listening app for more great artist interviews in the future. Stay seen.